Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Mercedes and today I'm going to share with you a bunch of books that made me cry. Books that I have here today are either going to aid you in your sad girl hour if you're looking for a book that is just going to be able to open the floodgates and allow you to get out whatever sadness you have trapped in there, or you're looking for a book that is going to test your emotional availability. These books are good for either of those things. Sometimes we need a good sad book that is just going to open up the bottle that we have been keeping a tight lid on, and sometimes the crying session becomes way more than about the book and it becomes low-key a therapy session, but that's okay because sometimes we need that. I'm in no position to judge you, girl. Matter of fact, I think girls should be allowed to cry at least 10 times a month without judging because it's hard out here. With all of these hormones, are you kidding me? Like, it's like, what? A man could never do this, okay? I do love a book that makes me cry because that just means that I was able to deeply connect with the writing or with the characters or with the plot, whatever the reason may be. I was able to relate to something, or I was able to feel a part of something, because sometimes in these books it's just like a sad thing that's happening, and whenever I'm just so invested into the book, I love that feeling. Before we get into the sad books I have right here, can I tell you that I have been sad? I have been sad. It has been a rough couple of weeks. I didn't mean to transition that so hard right there, but that's the truth. The past few weeks have been very challenging. I have had so many things happen in my life. I am in one of those ruts where I have just kind of been on autopilot and I'm trying to get myself out of that. But I know that sometimes I get in these moods whenever I'm facing something that's challenging or difficult. I kind of will just shut down so I don't have to, face those things. And in this chapter that I'm in my life, I don't want to do that. So it's like a new healing step in whatever journey of life I'm in. I am chug-a-lugging. We're chug-a-lugging through life. Actually, I said chug-a-lugging the other day and I googled it just to see if I was using the phrase correctly. I wasn't. Chug-a-lugging is like when you're chugging something. I thought it was like chug-a-lugging like a train, And now I can't stop using the phrase chug-a-lugging. It's like now engraved in my head and I'm using it incorrectly according to Google. Without further ado, let's get into the books that made me cry. I feel like I have to start with the first book that ever made me feel like tears were about to fall from my face. That was the first time that's ever happened, and this book is what really changed my reading journey. You may know what I'm talking about, may not. I'll just show you. It's The Court of Mist and Fury. This is the first book that while I was reading, I gasped so hard. I screamed and I was like, hold up, stop. And I almost started crying. I didn't have the full-on tears to this book, but it definitely almost sent me over the edge. This book is kind of like the honorary mention for the whole ACOTAR series, because then you have A Court of Wings and Ruin. And I cried in that book, okay? And then you have Silver Flames. And the way I bawled. Absolutely sobbed whenever I finished that book. One, because it was over. Or I thought it was over at the time. Apparently there's another book coming out in the series. Allegedly. I'm going to say allegedly because we haven't heard nothing from SJM. So who knows what's happening there. But when I finished Silver Flames, it's like I just went on this big journey with these people. And I loved everyone, and then it was over. So when I say this whole series changed the reading game for me, it did that on so many levels. And I'm just gonna go ahead and throw in the two other SJM books that have made me cry. Now, I have cried in every SJM series. She just knows how to do it to me. Of course, we have Kingdom of Ash. There's another book in the Throne and Glass series that made me cry, which was Assassin's Blade, but this is the honorary mention from the Throne of Glass series. I cried multiple times throughout this book. It is this big journey. It's the final conclusion. All the other books were leading to this moment here, and it's you're finally here. It's finally happening. Oh my god, I can't handle this. we have the book that has given me perhaps the hardest whiplash I have received in a book, especially within the first 100 pages. We have the first Crescent City book, which is House of Earth and Blood. I literally cannot talk to you about this without spoiling it. Just know that my heart has never recovered. And this series is actually the only series I think that I feel this way about, that I love the first book. And then the two other books in this series I think are okay. Okay, like the first book, top tier, and then it was just a slow decline. That's just my opinion. Moving out of the SJM universe, we have Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. Ugh. This book is divided into 3 parts. You have part 1, part 2, part 3, all in the one book, right? The first part is where the trauma happens to these 2 people, and it's really difficult to read about, but it's happening to them. And part 2 is my favorite part of this book, because the way it really shows what it's like for people who've been through a traumatic event to try to readapt to life again. And I felt like I really related to the characters. While I didn't go through what they went through, I have tried to pretend to be normal sometimes. So part 2 really pulled at my heartstrings, and part 3 was like a hope core. Like, it's like, okay, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Just this whole journey, this whole process, this whole book, absolutely incredible. Next we have Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillick. This is the second book in the Shepherd King duology. I love this duology so much, and with all of these books I'm trying to describe them with like the smallest amount of details as possible because I don't want to spoil anything for you, and I feel like if I'm recommending a book to make you cry, the best way to do it is to go in completely blind. But I always recommend going into a book blind. Isn't that weird that I review and recommend books and tell you to go into them blind, and I'm just like, here, trust me on this one? With this duology, I loved all of the characters, and I would be actually really happy if we got a spin-off in this series, just because I loved it so much, and 2 books doesn't feel like enough because I miss them. It's the whole journey of following along the underdogs, or following along people who are kind of outcast in society, who are really trying to work for like the better of the people to overthrow a corrupt king, and just that whole journey of how hard it was for them, and then seeing the payoff. I could go on and on about the Shepherd King duology. It's not the first time my big fat mouth has been yapping about this series, but I did cry in Two Twisted Crowns. I don't know if you guys knew that, but you do know now. Say You Swear by Megan Brandy. I feel like this one is a given. I feel like this is like one of those popular books. If you're looking to cry, read Say You Swear by Megan Brandy. It's like one of those things, like life circumstance just hits you right in the face and you don't expect it to happen, but it does. It happens to you, and you're like trying to hold it together. You're trying to be a good person, and just I think this is going to be a 4-book series, if I'm correct. The second book has been released, which is Promise Me Not. I also did cry in Promise Me Not, but Say You Swear was my favorite book in this series so far. The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Unexpected. There was multiple times throughout this book that made me tear up and almost cry, but it was the ending that really just blew the top right off for me. Oh my god, just even thinking about it. This whole story is just gut-wrenching the whole time. It is a historical fiction. It does take place whenever Germany was invading France, and it follows along normal people who are affected by the war. Kind of like makes you pause for a second and think like, this happened to people. Maybe not this exact plot, but this has happened to people, is happening to people, and will happen to more people. And it's just, it's so heartbreaking. Kid by Jessie Hall. Really unique about Kid by Jessie Hall, and I think this is the only book that I have read like this, where the whole book is told through the main male character's point of view. I relate to the 2 main characters in this book in like this weird sort of like non-direct way. I relate to some of the things that they're talking about, but I haven't really been through what they've been through. But just hearing them talk about their life and why they are the way they are, and just kind of the things that they face behind closed doors, just really got to me. And the way I love this book so much, this is a 5-star read for me. This is one of my favorite Jessie Hall books, and I still think about it a lot. This one I feel like is going to be kind of low-key a given, but it's Powerful by Lauren Roberts. This book is a novella in the Powerless series. You have Powerless, and then you're supposed to read Powerful, and then you're supposed to read Reckless, which is the second book. I think there's another novella that's supposed to come out, but the third book is coming out next year. So that's the publication order for these books. This was released after Powerless. This follows along a character who passed away in Powerless, and it just, I know when I'm reading a book about a character who passed away, it's gonna make me cry. It's gonna make me cry every single time. I don't even know why I do it to myself, because sometimes you need a good cry. That's why. The Confidence of Wallflowers by Macaulay Smeltzer. Everyone warned me about this book. I will just say that there is child loss in this book, and that is the part that made me cry. I feel like sometimes whenever we are facing something in our personal lives that is deeply traumatizing, it is beneficial to have some sort of book or some sort of art form that relates to or talks about the things that we have been through in our life. Most of the times when I read sad books or books that resonated with me enough to make me cry, it's typically because within the book they give words to the feelings that I have not been able to describe or talk about. And seeing that happen on page makes me feel less alone. And this was one of those books for me. Next, we have Saving Noah by Lucinda Berry. This is another one of those books that gave words to things that I have been feeling, which is kind of alarming to hear me say because of what this book is about. But from a mother's point of view, the things that this mother went through, I am there with her, you know, and especially in the epilogue tore my heart to pieces. I think Saving Noah, you're either going to really like it. I wouldn't say this is like, Lucinda Berry is so unique in her writing because she writes about things that are real. She even says it herself that she blurs the line between fiction and nonfiction. So she's a psychologist, and a lot of the stories that she has written has very real representation of mental health and like the real implications of dealing with like some sort of mental struggle. And that's why I love Lucinda Berry so much. So the topic in this book is heavy, and it's not going to be for everyone, but this is one of those books that was just eye-opening, and it did make me cry for sure. Next, we have The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. First got on Book Talk, I was seeing everyone talk about this book. I feel like this is like, if you search sad books, this book is going to come up, and it is rightfully so. It has a different kind of writing style to it. The writing feels a little dry at some points, or it feels a little kind of long, and there were a lot of unnecessary points that happened within the book, but like the final conclusion it for some reason caught me off guard. I wasn't prepared for it, although, you know, it's kind of there in the whole plot. The last book that I have, and I believe that these are all of the books that made me cry. I really tried to look at my bookshelf and be like, this is all of them, right? I'm pretty sure this is all of them. But we have Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Actually, speaking of Rebecca Yarros, I have cried to The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros, but for some reason I don't own the copy of that book. I think if you read The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros and you don't cry, there is something wrong with you. Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. One specific moment in this book really got to me. I've discovered that whenever characters in a book use the phrase, "it's been my honor," that will always make me cry. Especially in this instance. Onyx Storm is about to come out soon in January. Can I have an honest moment with you guys? I don't think I've ever said this before out loud. I finished Iron Flame on November 9th, and Wesley died on November 10th. So like the last 3 days of his life, I was binging Iron Flame. And that kind of is in the back of my head and has put like a little damper on this series for me. I do want to read Onyx Storm. I'm going to read Onyx Storm, but for some reason, like, that feeling is associated with this series. What? Don't look at me like that. We were talking about sad things, and I thought that this was the moment that I could share that information with you, because it's just my reality. It's my truth. I have to speak my truth. So I'm excited to read Onyx Storm, but I kind of feel like I've blacked out a lot of what happened in Iron Flame, and I don't think I'll ever reread Iron Flame, so I'm just going to have to let my memory piece together whatever happens in Onyx Storm. Those are all of the books that made me cry. At least I'm hoping those are all the books that made me cry. I don't think I'm forgetting anyone. It doesn't feel like I'm forgetting anyone, but if I am, I'm sure I'll remember whenever I'm editing this video. Have you read any of these books? If you have, did they make you cry, or what books made you cry? That is all that I have for you guys today. Until next time, okay, bye. Love you.